Welcome to Don't Be Caged by Your Age, Joy. I'm so happy you're here to share your insights, stories, and pro-aging advice with our listeners. How are you?
Really good. I'm excited to hear about everything that you do and how we can both make this an awesome podcast.
Hooray! So, Joy, we're all about aging out loud and proud here on the pod. What is your age and where are you hailing from?
I am 72 years old and I am in Chicago, Illinois. I am a lifelong native Chicagoan. Go Cubs!
So, you have been basically an entrepreneur and a leader in elder living for decades. What compelled you, Joy, to focus your life's work on the elder industry?
I was a high school student at an all-girls Catholic high school, and it was freshman year. And Sister Dorothy marched in the room and wanted to know who was going to go to the nursing home with her on Thanksgiving. And I raised my hand only because I wanted extra credit. And I walked into the nursing home. I'm 14 years old, and I don't believe what I see because it's Thanksgiving morning. There's 7 people sitting in the dark. Now, I come from a big, huge Italian loud family in Chicago, and I'm going home to a house full of people and dogs and babies and food, lots of food. And I'm standing in front of 7 people in the dark. And that was it, Ande. From then, I've been going, what in the heck can I do to prevent people from ending up at the end of their precious life sitting in a dark room in a nursing home on Thanksgiving morning alone?
Oh my gosh, Joy, I have tears in my eyes. Listeners, you too? That is so powerful. So that tapped into your why at a very early age. You were very clear about your purpose and clearly having such a deep purpose, a deep why in your heart and your soul that fuels you over the years. How did you start moving forward and beginning the changes that you wanted to see in the world for our precious elders?
Well, one of the reasons why I became an entrepreneur at an early age was because I was a single mom. I had a 4-year-old and I was on my own. And so I knew that I couldn't raise her and work for someone else. So I jumped off the cliff and started my own advertising agency. But in that process of learning how to be a good communicator, I could not get that vision of 7 people sitting in the dark out of my head. And so I knew at about the age of 40 that if I could write a book that got people communicating, that might be the answer to people not being alone as they age. So the first edition of the Complete Eldercare Planner came out in 1982 before anyone was talking about it. And the first people or the first corporations that jumped on the bandwagon were the human resource directors. And I would knock on the door and I said, hey, you know that child care thing you have going on here? Move over. It's elder care time. And they said to me, what's elder care?
Joy, you were so far ahead of your time. I mean, this is the 80s.
Yeah. So I couldn't keep the first 3 editions. I kept printing them and printing them. And finally, I realized I can't do this. And I got a literary agent who represented me. And that book went on, and we had a bidding war. And that book now is in its 4th edition.
Listeners, you know, I got the clappers out. If you're watching on the video, I'm just clapping huge because so many of us were just trying to get the daycare happening. And there you were, the visionary that you are, pulling together the best way to address this issue, which is the name of your book, The Elder Planner, right?
The Complete Elder Care Planner, and it is a guide on how to talk about these various subjects and questions to ask. All I wanted to do, Ande, was get everybody to start talking. That's it. And this does that. It's providing its mission.
Well, walk us through. How do you guide? Why is it the complete guide? Like what is that first step?
Because we don't know all that it is entailed. So every single chapter is a subject that we need to address. money, housing, insurance. How do I get my siblings to pitch in? Communicating, insurance, blah blah blah, right?
Right.
But in there are no stories. In there are, hey, reader, these are the things you need to think about. These are the people you need to talk to. And these are the questions you need to ask. Get going. That's it.
And that's so important because everybody's very busy planning their 401k, their retirement, but several things they forget to think about is how am I going to take care of myself? Who's going to take care of me? And then, of course, who am I going to be? How am I going to rewire myself for this time period? And so, and I love that you went through HR,
Yeah,
human resources, Joy. How did that come to be? And I'm just curious, listeners,
sure.
as a founder, because we have to find our pathways to success. How, how did you get to that category?
Okay, so if you are thinking about having your own company, this is all the process is the same for everybody. Who's my audience and how do I reach them? Then you come up with your creative message. So, where is my audience? They're at work. What are they doing? They're thinking about their children. What do they need to be thinking about? Their parents. What can they do? Talk to their HR person and have their HR person guide them into the different employee benefits and elder care. And then I would show up.
And the organizations were okay talking about elder care. I mean, they might have been swamped dealing with the daycare challenges.
They loved it. They said, oh my goodness, thank you for opening my eyes. And guess who were the most receptive were the managers, because the managers at that time were in their 40s and 50s. And they realized that their ancient parents, who at that time were in their 60s and 70s, now our age, right? But this is the 80s.
Right.
Didn't live as long. Their parents didn't live as long. And today's 50-year-old is not the 50-year-old of the 1980s.
I know.
So
That
it
was a
was
short period of time ago.
yeah, it was a perfect match.
Oh my gosh, I love this. I love learning about that. And of course, as you were promoting your book and having these conversations, you probably noticed the narrative around ageism. Walk us through how that has shifted over the years. We're still, I mean, listeners, I say this all the time. Ageism is the one of the last socially acceptable prejudices out there. And people in cards everywhere are constantly making fun of aging and being old and of old people. What have you seen shift over the last 40 years?
I guess I could say the shift has been with me more than anything, because I don't sit around and do the blame game. We cannot control this, it's too big. But what I like to do is remind people that the only reason we hate the word old, or one of the most main reasons why we hate the word old, is because we're running out of time. Now we have a choice to make. Do we want to sit around and blame everybody who's looking at me sideways? Or do I want to go over here and lead a proactive life that will teach me how to make the best of my life right now? And when I'm with someone, am I being appropriate for myself as in presence? Am I a role model for what it means to age well and age appropriately with them? Am I respecting the person I am with? Ageism is a two-way street. Look at how we talk about the terrible twos or the teenagers. No,
For those
it's
20
going
year
on.
olds, what do they know?
It's not right. It's happening everywhere. So I just don't play that game. And I'm just constantly thinking about how can I be the best and be a role model for anybody who knows me.
And you are a role model. Listeners, I'm going to have links for all that Joy has got going on in her world and her life in the show notes. And being able to embrace this time in our life with vim and vigor, no matter what's going on for us physically. The limitations we often impose on ourselves are due to our own indoctrinated ageist beliefs. And Don't Be Caged by Your Age is all about dissolving those messages that we've picked up over the years about why you're too old to fill in the blank. Um, and you also brought up a point about the reverse ageism, et cetera. Intergenerational relationships, friendships are so important. And I often hear folks from my generation, the boomer generation, you know, complaining about millennials and the Zeds being lazy. They don't have a work ethic. They don't know what's going on in the world, which is not true at all. What are your thoughts about intergenerational relationships and
Oh,
using better language and having a better understanding of our millennials and Zeds?
they teach me and I teach them, and we are partners in this world. A lot of how I go about creating a quality life has to do with my thinking process. You brought it up. You said something about attitude. Well, my attitude is that critical thinking is how I go forward, and critical thinking has to do with engaging people who are not like me at all to help me negotiate the world. So guess who one of my best advisors in the world is?
Who?
My 8-year-old granddaughter. Now,
Why?
she has no filters. So if I say, hey, Ivy, what would you do if you were me? I can do this for work or I can do that for work. Which do you think is better? And she'll think about it for a second and she'll say, well, you could do this and here's why, or you could do that and here's why. Then I will go to someone who's maybe 90 and say the same thing. What would you do if you were me? And they would come from their perspective. That's the idea about critical thinking. I write a lot about it in my second book, Who Will Take Care of Me When I'm Old. So, how we negotiate the future will have a lot to do with intergenerations and people who are not like us: young, old, rich, poor, black, white, gay, straight, you name it.
Bringing all the difference into your life, right? Bringing
Yeah.
people who are walking different journeys, different pathways, but they're still having the human experience. And that is what we have in common, right? And what connects us. Joy, I never thought of critical thinking in that way.
I
It
know. I didn't know really much about it until the bell went off in my head one day about why is it that some people age better than others. And one of the things I read through research was how they think. And then I dug a little deeper and I said, well, what's the difference in thinking? Is it positive and negative? And that was only part of it. The other part was this thing called critical thinking that actually can be a course you take in college. And I said, oh, if I had to do it over, I would take that course. But I read a lot. So
That's fascinating. So that leads us right into your other book. Talk a little bit about that.
who will take care of me when I'm old? Whoa, right?
Right?
So
I mean, that's getting right to the point and the fear of just about everybody. I mean, we happily changed our, well, not maybe not happily, but we changed our babies' diapers and took good care of our drooling newborns and toddlers, et cetera. But now, as we age, who will take care of us?
well, here's a real interesting thing that's been going on about that book. Ever since it came out, I've had a lot of different experiences, and I titled it with that direct hit question on purpose because I knew that it would cause a stir. So most people say, yes, that's a great question. I think about it all the time. Other people say, oh, I don't need it. I got it all handled. I got a lawyer. I got this and that. But that's not true. As we know, things change. And other people say, don't you come too near me. I don't want to talk about it. It's too hard. I'll figure it out later. But the most interesting response that I have gotten from the title of that book is, well, Joy, who are you to tell me that I'm going to even need care? And to that person, I say, you know what? You're absolutely right. My mother died in her sleep. She didn't need a day of care in her life. In fact, when we came to her house that day that she died overnight, we went to her house. She was preparing to cook dinner for all of us that night. the olive oil and the spaghetti was on the counter, and she was doing her life, and well, she just didn't wake up. So, why do I say the word care is important? Because it has four definitions. It's not just about physical care. We have mental health, our emotions, we have social care, and we have our spiritual life. So, if you're lucky enough to be healthy, are you paying attention to the other three?
Wow, that is so important. And I'm sure many people, when they hear who will take care of me, go to the physical part, which
Mhm.
is where will I be housed? Will I be stuck as you found those 7 elders when you were 14? Will
Mhm.
that be, I mean, that's everyone's nightmare. Or will I age out in my home? Will I have the gift of dying in my sleep like your beautiful mom did? At least to me, that's a gift. Pain free, whoop, living life, and then boom, not living life. But I think what you brought up, especially the mental health component. Yeah, the World Health Organization came out in 2021 with a study saying that retirement is costing societies billions of dollars because once someone leaves the stream of work, even if they'd hated it, they have not thought about how am I going to take care of myself now that I am retired, mentally especially. And that's what happens. And when your mental health goes down the tubes, it's often followed by your physical health going down the tubes. How do you talk about the mental health component of who will take care of me?
So it's, as we know, stories are everything and experiences are everything. So I remind people of what it was like, and this goes for all of us. What was it like to experience COVID-19? Okay, many of us were not ill with the disease, with the virus. What did we suffer from? Our isolation. We couldn't hug our friends, and our spiritual life might have gone down the tubes. It's like, why is God doing this? What is going on? What did, where is the world going? Or whatever questions you put in the spiritual world.
Right.
So, how I talk about it is keep in mind what it was like during COVID, so that if you were lucky enough to be physically well, are you taking good care of the other parts of your life? Your mental health. What are you doing to self-actualize your long life? How are you remaining social? And what are those questions you might need to be asking yourself about the meaning of life? Many people aren't religious, and this is not a religious quest by any means, but we do tend toward our later years to wonder, what was it all about, and did I do enough?
Right, right. And especially with what I call the expiration date. We don't have a date stamped on our booties, right? Saying, up, you're done this date. We don't know. And so we can be paralyzed by that. And then you couple it with isolation. And whereas before your community might have been built in for you because work often brings community of some sort and collaboration, how do you rewire? And how do you repurpose those lived experiences? But I always like to focus on the mental health because there are services out there that can help you, right?
Well, and let's just take it, bring it home. Yes, there are, but be careful who you hang out with. Right? So if you're with a bunch of people who are going, woe is me, and I'm doomed, and oh my God, I'm old, and that's a 40-year-old you're hanging out with who's saying that. Come on, we have got to choose our friends wisely, because eventually, if we keep out living, or we move away from our family, or just, circumstances happen, we do make choices on who we hang out with. And these people become very, very important.
Absolutely. And as I'm always saying, if you can't find community, create one. But I also like to throw out meetup.com, folks. There are things going on all over your city, town, area, region that you might want to go and explore. It could be the gaming industry folks, getting together talking about gaming. Why not go check it out? What's all this gaming about? Maybe you missed the boat and now you could end up becoming an avid gamer. Try those new things. There's so many ways to find folks. And also, we all know that when we volunteer, when we find a way to take care of others, we take care of ourselves, right, Joy?
Oh, it's the best. I always go to volunteering first. And especially I travel a lot and I'm tired a lot because it's grueling. I love it, but that's the way it is. And I will never miss my Sunday with my church people and I'm volunteering to feed somebody or do
Right.
something or clean up the whatever because all of a sudden it just gives me some more positive energy at a slower pace. And I need the
Right.
slow.
Oh, Judith Kernick, she's 72 as well. She is an executive transformation coach. So she was a high performer her entire career. And she realized it was really hard to get off that hamster wheel. And she knew others would have that challenge. But she talks about the energy portfolio. So you invest money in a portfolio. Well, this is how am I going to invest my energy? And
Mhm.
where's the best and highest use for that energy? And so there's a little more planning in that as we get into our 60s, 70s, and 80s and beyond. And you're talking about how you're traveling. One of the things you do, which I love to pieces, is that you are a speaker. And I know for a fact a lot of folks over 65, Joy, think they're too old to be a speaker. Yeah, talk a little bit about your speaker journey and how you are continuing to be in front of folks and sharing your wisdom.
I like to think they probably realize they have something of quality to share, even in small groups, or start with maybe Zoom meetings and say something of significance in a Zoom meeting and just inch your way into speaking, articulating, formulating ideas. But the fear factor is usually what I mean, I've been on a zillion Zoom meetings, right? And podcasts or whatever. And it's usually there are always people who just they won't turn their camera on and they won't speak. So maybe
Right.
if you're petrified about speaking, maybe just turn your camera on.
And and folks, I'll be having Mimi Donaldson on the show soon. She's been an entire career speaking. She's 76 and she trains folks of all ages to be TEDx speakers. So that's your local TEDx. Those are places where you can get up and just share 10 to 20, 18 minutes, I think, of your life, something that's important to you. But sometimes it's great to have a coach to get you ready, right, Joy?
Excellent. Yes, that's great. I coach young kids who we are encouraging them to speak at church. And so I am coaching kids who are in
Excellent.
seventh and eighth grade and high schoolers.
And
Because speaking is part of being a leader. So if you have something of significance to say, it's a good time to say it.
well, and don't hesitate to be a podcaster, folks. Uh,
Yeah,
Reach out to me if that's of any interest for you. I am the host of the New England Podcasters Group. I've been doing this since 2012. But once you get into the habit of looking into the camera and talking, and you can practice, or you can bring folks like Joy on and have a delicious conversation, you get better and better and better. And it's doing something again and again and working out the kinks. You're absolutely right. Using the online features and tools that we have right now. And one thing you are never too old for, folks, is to learn new technology. It is much easier than you think. And the tools out there are making our lives so much easier. What are your thoughts on that, Joy?
right. I like I said, there's a lot of things that stop us from doing things, and I think the biggest thing is ourselves. We
Right.
make up stories about things that just aren't true, and fear holding us back. Like you said, don't be caged by your age. Well, don't be caged by your fear.
Right.
So
Oh,
fear is you deal with your fears. What is the worst that can happen? Who can help you? And
right.
how can, who can tell you how to get started? Inch toward your goals. Just do it. Life is short.
I love that. And when I was reviewing your bio, You had this thing in there called Age Without Borders. I am so curious. Would you spend a moment just telling us what that's all about?
Sure. About 10 years ago, a wonderful woman by the name of Carrie Henley approached me, and she said that Age Without Borders would be a film series that I could help her distribute to employers. And we thought the Age Without Borders series would help employees who don't have time to go to a class, who don't have time to go to a sport group, could learn through videos. And so Carrie distributed Age Without Borders through all kinds of employers. And that began a journey for Carrie. That was, she felt more comfortable as a producer rather than a speaker. And it filled a niche of all kinds. So she, in her process of interviewing someone, this is another tip for people who want to speak, become the interviewer. How about it? There you go.
There
And
it
so
is.
that was Carrie's journey, and Age Without Borders was just a wonderful tool
Oh,
for employers.
I found that so fascinating. Thank you. As you are moving forward, you're in one of the best decades of your life right now. What is fueling your passion today? What do you see happening over the next few years that's going to keep you lit up and sharing your glow?
The success stories of the people that are doing what they say they're going to do. And nothing fuels me more than hearing people say, Joy, there's one thing you said, and this is what I did with it. And then they tell me, what could be better than that?
Do you have an example?
Oh, yeah, sure. A lot of what I talk about has to do with communicating with your parents. And now that we're the parents, the boomers, I have a lot of the adult children who are dealing with boomer parents. So I say things about, look, pretend I'm your mom. If you're telling me what to do, you might as well forget it. So there are other ways to do it. And then when I tell them, like for instance, ask for my advice. I'll give you my advice. And then you and I can engage in a conversation about, well, what do you think I should do? What are you doing? But this way, some young woman came up to me and said, I did that. And my mom and I talked about it and it worked. And I'm so glad. And thank you. Thank you.
Uh,
So like that, I love when they tell me something I said in a talk, then they feed it back to me. They tell me what happened. And I'm like, okay, well, can't be better than that. So,
That is the best feeling in the world, having an impact. Even folks, when it's on one person's life, you have no idea about that ripple effect in the world that that will create. It's not a numbers game, it's a one by one game. Do you agree with that, Joy?
well, being in Chicago, I have way early on, we would give talks on a 20 degree below zero day at the local assisted living community, and three people would show up, and we would all be sitting there and we'd be like, so what? Here we are. This is the best, and we'd have the greatest time. It is never a numbers game. Just like the ageism thing. Like I said, I'm one-on-one with someone. That's all I've got. I only have one person at a time to be with. And
That's
then when
right.
I am, yeah. So I mean, that's all there is.
It
When you,
really is. And that again, the human connection is so
yeah.
powerful and so inspirational. What advice do you have for folks to help them from being caged by their age and thrive after 65?
Be careful who you hang out with, because we are all influencers and easily influenced, and we have more, I don't know, we're thinking more about, oh my goodness, I don't want to make a mistake. So if you are with people who are showing you how they do life, and we feel that they are trustworthy and we could do it, that's what I would do, is be with those kinds of positive, forward moving people.
I think that is the best advice for any age and stage of life,
Mhm.
right? It's
Yeah,
who you surround yourself with because it's easy to get influenced and start tunneling on down into
yeah,
sadness and despair. And it's much better to be with folks who are finding solutions
yeah.
and helping others and adding wind to sails, each other's sails. I am so excited to have this conversation with you, Joy. I mean, I know I follow you everywhere. Please let folks know how they can work with you, follow you, and stay in touch with you.
I would say the easiest way is just to go to my website. Everything is there, and it's elderindustry.com.
Wonderful. And listeners, I will have the links for Joy's books, Who Will Take Care of Me When I'm Old, and the complete Elder Care Planner. I'll have the links for those in the show notes, as well as all the links to find and follow and connect with the remarkable Joy. Thank you so much for sharing your wisdom today with me, Joy. It's just such an honor to know you. And wow, your deep understanding for both folks who are thinking forward to taking care of their parents to those who are in the age and stage where they need to start thinking about how end of life will be for them. You are adding value everywhere you glow. Thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you for having me.
And listeners, remember, as Joy said, you have so much more to give. Don't stop. Keep moving. Don't let those internalized ageist beliefs prevent you from pursuing new dreams and opportunities, no matter what age you're at. Until next time, I'm wishing you a delicious day everywhere you glow. Cheers from Boston. Listeners, I'm so grateful you carved out time to tune in and grab the gems from this delicious conversation. Be sure to hop on over to Don't Be Caged by Your Age on LinkedIn or Instagram to share your thoughts about ageism and unretirement. Because in this space, your age doesn't define you, it refines you. If you are inspired by a story you hear, it would mean the world to me if you would subscribe, share, rate, and review the podcast. To receive an alert whenever a new show is posted, please join the Don't Be Caged by Your Age newsletter. Every month, you'll receive links to the podcast and helpful resources for creating possibilities for your unretirement days. Thank you for tuning in. I am so excited to hear how you found ways to thrive after 65. Waving from Boston, cheers.